So over the span of all 6 Scream movies, there are 12 different Ghostface killers. Some of them better than the other ones, very different. They did a really good job of making all of them have different motives, have different personalities. I feel like in every movie we see a different side of what a Ghostface killer could be because of the different personality that is now Ghostface. I feel like out of all the killers, everyone has their favorite, like who they relate to in a sense. Okay, not really relate to because they're like murderers, but more of like who they connect to as a character. Because even though obviously murders kind of suck, we love to watch our favorite Ghostface do the unveiling and reveal their whole scheme, and it's what makes a Scream movie good, is the mystery and the killer reveal. So obviously I have my favorite Ghostface, so I was like, okay, I need to make a video ranking all of the Ghostface killers. I know it's a little basic because I feel like every Scream channel does this, but come on, who doesn't love to rank all of the killers in their favorite order? So my ranking is not going to have any sides behind it. It's really just my opinion. That's the only thing going into it. Obviously I have reasons for liking some better than others, like amount of time they're in the movie, or personality, or even their character before they're unmasked. I feel like that plays a really big factor in whether or not they're a good Ghostface killer. But I've seen people who have lists that are completely opposite of mine, where they have my last one as their favorite. And so it really comes down to what your personality is and what actors you like, honestly. This is going to be my ranking, but obviously this is very objective. I feel like a lot of the ones I like are fan favorites. I feel like I have a lot of those at the top of my list just because they're so good and everyone can kind of agree on that. I've seen other people have very different rankings, so really to each their own. Now, if you haven't seen every Scream movie, I'm clearly going to be naming who all the killers are, so you might want to not watch this if you haven't seen all of them and you don't want to know who it is. So, spoiler warning, I'm about to say all of the killers from every movie, so you've been warned. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, I feel like I voice this opinion a lot that I don't like this Ghostface killer. My 12th place is going to Roman Bridger. I just really don't like him. But I will say, I've seen the comments. I mean, there are some Roman fans out there. I didn't know there were any, but some people are really passionate about Roman. And like, I don't like him personally, but go you if you do. Like, I don't have anything against you. Like, I don't really understand it because, you know, I don't like him. But I've seen the Roman fans and like, go you. Please tell me why, because I'm very interested in why people are fans of Roman. But personally, I cannot stand him. One thing that I don't like, and this is going to apply to a couple other ones, is I just don't like when the killers are not very threatening and they come off as a really whiny brat. And I feel like Roman, even after his reveal, he's sitting there like whining like a 5-year-old, and it's really not threatening at all. And I'm like, okay, just Sydney, take this guy out. The other thing I don't like about Ghostface killers is when they're super boring. I find Rowan Bridger, without being the killer, just probably the most boring character in the entire franchise for me. He's supposed to be this director, and I'm literally like a film student, so I feel like I should be relating to him in a sense, but I just really don't think he has any director personality about him. He doesn't seem like he's in control of anything. I really don't believe that he was the Ghostface killer behind that movie, because I don't believe that his personality and character, which is shown after he's revealed, is the one who came up with this whole scheme of telling Billy and Stu to do it and then coming after Sydney after becoming a famous director. Like, I just don't believe it. He's a whiny brat, he's kind of boring, and I don't like the character. I just like, he's literally like, without being Ghostface, he's literally my least favorite character in the franchise. I feel like he was not given anything, I guess maybe in defense of the actor who seems okay. I just don't think that character was given very much to do. He's not in the movie all that much, and every time he's in the movie, he's just like complaining about something. And I honestly think the reason I like him as little as I do is he's the only killer of his movie, which I'm not against having one killer in a movie, like that's fine, but if you're gonna have one killer, it needs to be a solid killer. If Billy Loomis was the only killer in his movie, I would have been fine with that, and I would still like him because he's a strong killer. If Roman was a secondary killer, then I probably wouldn't like him as little, because he would have someone else to be able to fall back on and have them also be helping him. Scream 3 is just also not really my favorite movie out of the franchise. Like, it's literally my least favorite, so maybe that has to do with it too. And I understand there were problems at the time with filming it because of events that were happening in real life. But I just, like, don't like Roman. He's 12th place for me, for sure. Like, it's a far 12th place for me. 11th place, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone like this Ghostface killer, but maybe there are those people, is Charlie Walker. Honestly, it has a lot to do with the reasons I don't like Roman. He seems to be kind of a whiny brat, kind of a pushover. I don't believe that he's the killer. His character is really boring. I feel like a lot of these reasons I have not liked them are actually really similar, because they have these traits where they're either boring or they're not very threatening. They don't seem like they have any leadership skill. Now, the reason that Charlie isn't as bad as Roman is because Roman's character is written to be a leader. Charlie was not made to be the leader. Like, he's supposed to be a pushover. That's who he is. And that's his ending in the movie, is that Jill used him to do what she needed to do and then got rid of him, which I actually love. I think Jill makes him better than he is, but on his own, like, he's just not a very strong killer, not threatening, and kind of boring. Now, my 10th place killer could really, like, change on a day. Like, these next couple ones are really, like, interchangeable. I don't really care for any of them, but my 10th place for now, for today, is Detective Bailey from Scream 6. I feel like all the Scream 6 killers are kind of on the same level. It wasn't the strongest batch of killers, in my opinion. I thought the movie was fine, I just didn't really like the killers. I feel like they did this big thing with, like, feeling like they had the 3 killer reveal, but all of them were really weak, and it didn't really make sense why they were all connected. Obviously, the dad and daughter did, but Ethan had no reason to be a killer, but we're not talking about him, we're talking about Detective Bailey and why he's 10th. Like I said with the others, I feel like he's kind of a boring character. He was definitely in the movie a lot, and he really was close to the main characters, which is why he's not last, because I think in that sense he was really well done, in the sense that he was, like, helping them with everything, kind of being the one guiding them to where he wanted. I feel like there were a couple of inconsistencies where he would do things that didn't make sense. Like, why did he set up the calling thing in the park when he knew that they would find Quinn at the apartment with Gail and have time to stop her? Like, why did he even set that up? Why is he wasting his time? Why is he so passionately trying to catch this killer when he knows it's him, instead of, like, maybe trying to get people off of it? I don't know. All that didn't really make sense to me. He's obviously the main killer of this movie. He should have that reasoning. Like, his reasoning behind everything should make sense more than the other two. Like, why did he kill Jason and Greg at the beginning of the movie? There was no reason for that. When they were literally doing the dirty work and they could have hidden in the shadows. Like, I felt like that made no sense. A lot of his decisions made no sense. Why in the finale of Scream 6 he's holding a gun the whole time? Why is he not shooting anyone with it? Like, he just made a lot of those decisions. The other thing I didn't like about Detective Bailey was the motive, because it was clearly a copycat of Scream 2, like, exact same motive. Them doing kind of the boyfriend thing in the first Scream was unpredictable because you were expecting something else. It, like, subverted your expectations by, like, 2 steps. But I feel like doing the same thing in Scream 2, like, why? Why are we doing the exact same plot line? Let's think of something else, please. It felt a little lazy when it came to his character of, like, okay, he's doing all these things. No one thought about why he was doing them. No one thought about giving him a motive that was unique. There was some lazy writing there, in my opinion. And that isn't really his fault, I feel like, the guy who played him or the character. It's more of the writers who wrote his character, but unfortunately he will take the fall for it. In 9th place, I have Quinn Bailey. I mean, another Scream 6 killer who was iffy. I felt like Quinn and Ethan at the end of the movie were a little, I don't know, they were a little derpy. I didn't buy that they were very scary. The reason I feel like she's higher than Detective Bailey is I just liked her character more. I liked her character before she was unmasked. She was really, like, cool and fun, and, like, would joke around with the Carpenter sisters, and it would be really interesting to watch. I think she had a lot of funny lines too. Her acting at the end of the movie when she was revealed seemed very different from her original character in the beginning, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think well done, that works, but it just seemed a little cartoony. Like, cartoony villain monologue, raising her hand to tell you what I don't know, I just didn't like her finale reveal at all. Like, I thought it was a little weird. Also, her unmasking was pretty lame, like, where they're in the line and unmasking, and, like, I didn't like that either. But honestly, I don't think she's much better than Detective Bailey. I just liked her character in the beginning of the movie more and didn't think that she was boring, so. Then my 8th place is Ethan Landry. Again, really not, the Scream 6 killers weren't really that different for me. they could all change tomorrow. I think he does a better job with switching his character when he's unmasked, where he's like the nice guy, and then like when he's unmasked he's a little sadistic, which is like coming out of nowhere, I feel like. But I feel like it's not as cartoony as Quinn's was. He had no reason for being the killer. Like, it would have been the exact same ending had it just been Quinn and Detective Bailey. Like, he seemed really out of place there with the only one pretending he's not in the family. I don't know. It didn't work for me. These Scream 6 killers, in my opinion, were one of the weak batches of killers. I don't think that they were as threatening as they were supposed to be, considering the movie that they were in, where Scream 6 was talking about how it wanted to go on a darker tone. They all seemed really derpy, in my opinion. I don't know how to explain it. They just seemed a little bit derpy at the end when they were all like taunting them. It wasn't as sadistic as I feel like Billy, Loomis, and Stu were. And as goofy as a Stu was in the first one, the things he was saying and the way he was acting were still had a level of scariness to it. I don't know how to explain that. And I feel like they were trying to do that with like Quinn, where she was trying to be a little unhinged, but they didn't do it as well as the original. 7th place, I have Mrs. Loomis. I feel like even if you don't like Mrs. Loomis, you have to have somewhat respect for her, just for the fact that she is really brilliant in the way that she plans her thing, where she stays out of Sydney's sight and only sticks with Gail, and her reveal at the end was alright, and she turns on her partner. She's the first killer to turn on her partner. She kills Randy, which was a huge deal. I really think her character is kind of boring, and I feel like her character is a little bit derpy just throughout the movie. Once she's revealed, I think she's really good, but throughout the movie, I just found her a little bit like annoying, but not in a good way. Just like kind of like, please, like, I'm not interested in any of your scenes. I also think that it's super obvious that she's the killer, because she's the only one on that side, like on the Gail side, that keeps showing up for no reason. There's no one else really except Gail and Dewey on that side, so it's obviously gotta be her. And she's like a nothing character that they just happen to keep bringing back, and it's like by the second time you see her, I feel like you know that she's the killer. When I watched that movie, I knew that she was the killer by the second time she came on, because I'm like, okay, who cares about this random reporter girl? I think the twist that she's Billy's mother is really brilliant, and it was the first time it was done, unlike Scream 6. Them kind of referencing that with Randy talking about Mrs. Voorhees, pulling that from a different movie, I think that was really well done. I think it really comes down to the fact that I just don't like her character that much, and I find her a bit boring and derpy in the beginning of the movie. I think when she's revealed, she's fine. In 6th place, I have Mickey Altieri, which I feel like this is like the end of the killers that aren't my favorites. I feel like Mickey, if he were maybe in the movie a bit more, I would like him more. I think he had a lot of potential. He's a film student, I'm a film student, I feel like I can relate to that in some sense. The fact that he's missing out of half the movie just takes a lot out of his character, just because he's not in it that much. The fact that he's betrayed by his partner shows that he's got some stupidity to him, which brings him down a bit. I do think that his performance after he's unmasked is one of my favorites. I think he does a really good job with that. And I really liked his motive of that he's just a creep. Like, he's just a serial killer who loves it. And that's really scary. I feel like no other killer is like that, where they were just already a crazy person. And he was pulled into this job by Mrs. Loomis to do that. He doesn't really have any reason for doing it. He's really just, he wants to kill people. Like, that's so unique. I find his character quite boring before his unmasking. He's not my favorite, but he's definitely not the worst. And I think he had a lot of potential that wasn't met, but he definitely gave it his all in that last reveal performance, so you gotta give it to him for that. I feel like these next two on my list have a little bit of bias for me, just because this was the first movie that I got to go see in the theater. I wasn't really able to watch horror movies when I was like really young, so I wasn't able to see the first, second, third, and fourth movie when they came out, which does kind of make it less magical for me that I didn't get to see that. But I got to go see Scream 5 in the theater, and I didn't know who the killers were, and I was a huge Scream fan. But 5th place, I have Amber Freeman, and I haven't heard a lot of people like Amber Freeman. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of girls who like Amber Freeman because she's a cool girl killer. I wasn't a huge fan of Amber when I first watched the movie. I thought she was kind of annoying and rude, but I feel like her performance after she's unmasked is really good. I think her reveal is one of the most unique reveals ever, which her just like shooting someone. She's like, yeah, it's me, like, who cares? Revealing in front of everyone, like, who does that? Amber's the only killer, I believe, to unmask twice, to reveal twice. I'm not sure if there's anyone else. And after rewatching the movie a lot, I feel like I didn't give enough credit to Amber's character. I think she's got a lot of good lines, a lot of good scenes. I think she's not boring, which is a plus. I think the actress did a good job with her. I think she's one of the better female Ghostfaces. She's not the lead Ghostface either, so I'm not kind of putting that pressure on her to be that leader because she's not supposed to be. So I think she does a good job with her side killer part. I feel like you've got the lead killer and you've got the side killer, and you've got to have different aspects of your character to fill that role, and I feel like she fills that secondary really well. I think she's kind of a callback to Stu in the way she does it, and I think that she didn't fully live up to that, but she definitely did a good job with it. I don't know, Amber is an interesting one because I didn't like her when I first saw the movie, and then she grew on me over the rewatches, so I don't know, it's kind of an iffy one. She kind of got thrown in a spot in the middle. I think she's a better character than I gave her credit for in the beginning. In fourth place, I have Richie Kirsch, who ended up being higher on this list than I thought he was gonna be. I actually really thought Richie was a great character, and I know other people can't relate to this, but I didn't realize he was the killer. Like, I didn't think they were gonna do that again, so it really surprised me when he revealed himself, and I love his reveal so much, where he just kind of reveals it on the spot. And I like that you don't think it's him during his reveal because they have another ghost face in the room that you assume is an Amber, because why would Amber put back on the costume when everyone knows she's the killer? I think that was really well done, where you're like, what is happening? I didn't figure that out, so that was a fun surprise. He's obviously in the movie a whole bunch. He's like a main character almost. Like I had him on the level of like with Sam up there, because I'm like, okay, they're trying to figure it out. I knew he was either going to die or be the killer in the end because the boyfriend never makes it. I think the thing that Richie has that no other killer has done as good or at all is that his character before he's unmasked and his character after he's unmasked are so different, but so well done. So at the beginning, he's like this kind of follower. He kind of does whatever Sam wants. He doesn't really have any opinions. He's just like trying to be a supportive boyfriend. And it's like, once he unmasks, he turns into this leader who's so sadistic and scary and like psychotic, the way he like scarily laughs. It's so interesting to see that he had both of those sides and he was hiding it all this time. And I think his difference of character is so well done. I really liked Richie. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. I feel like these Scream 5 killers don't get enough credit because they're the newer movies and everyone's always likes the older ones better, which I can respect. Obviously, those came before, and it's the reason the new ones are being made. But I don't know. I feel like Richie was a really good killer, and I feel like people don't give him enough credit for it. Okay, we're getting into the best killers. So at third place, obviously, he could not be any lower than this placing. I want him to be higher, but there's just not enough spots. Third place is Stu Macher. Clearly one of the legends, one of the best killers to ever be in the franchise. OG Ghostface. He's so not boring, which I didn't realize that was such a big category for me, whether or not they're a boring character. I don't like boredom. I don't like being bored, and I don't like boring characters. Obviously, he's one of the least boring characters in the entire franchise. He's so funny. He's such a great character without being Ghostface, and then he ends up being Ghostface, and the way he's revealed, you're not expecting to. He gets that shock of like, wait, he's also the killer, that no one else got because no one knew in the first movie that they would ever do two killers. Matthew Lillard is a legend, such a great actor. One thing I really like about Stu is that, and I just said this about Richie, which is funny because I really liked how Richie did his different characters, but one thing I really like about Stu is that his character before he's unmasked and his character after he's unmasked are not different at all. Like, he's literally the same person, and that's what makes him scary. And I know that I just said the opposite about Richie, but I feel like you can make either work if it's well done. And I feel like both of those people made it well done. And obviously Stu is so well done that he's the same after, because it makes such a unique killer. I think Stu is probably the most unique killer, just because he's kind of like almost crazy in the sense of that he doesn't understand that this is all not acceptable. He thinks it's all just one big joke, which is frightening in my opinion. So my number 2 is the world's number 1, but you know, I feel like everyone has their own personal favorite Ghostface. So my number 2 is Billy Loomis, who I think objectively is the best Ghostface. He's in the movie so much, you like are supposed to think it's him, which makes you not think it's him. I feel like that is one critique on Billy, if I had one, is that they do say so much, it's Billy, it's Billy, it's Billy, so it's in your head the whole time, so when he's a mask, you're like, okay, it was him. So maybe they should have not done that as much like they did with Richie. Other than that, he's the perfect Ghostface killer. I think his reveal is one of the most frightening reveals. I think he's the scariest Ghostface killer, potentially. Like, I would not want to be against Billy Loomis. Like, he's terrifying. I think the first movie has the best finale scene. I don't think anything has ever topped that. Billy Loomis is what made Scream. He's the one who made the Ghostface killer title so iconic. I don't think anyone will ever live up to him, at least in the eyes of the world. I feel like he's the world's #1 Ghostface, and I totally respect that. So I know that I'm not the only fan of this Ghostface, because I've seen so many people who love this Ghostface. My #1 Ghostface is Jill Roberts, and I have a lot of reasons why. I think it's so interesting how they wrote her role. There is one thing I want to address about her character, which is that she is a little bit of a boring character before she's unmasked. I did say that I don't like boring characters, and I put her as #1, but I feel like there's something to be said about her boringness versus the other people's boringness. I feel like the boringness of the other Ghostface killers doesn't add anything to it. I feel like it just makes them boring. I don't think it's because they were supposed to be boring. I think it's just because the performance of the character was a bit boring, or the writing of the character was a bit boring. I feel like Jill was intentionally written kind of under the radar, a little bit Sydney-ish, where Sydney's not boring, but she's really timid, and she's like, okay, doesn't show too much emotion, doesn't really want to get in the middle of the drama, and I feel like Jill was written in that same aspect because they don't want you to suspect her as a killer at all. They want you to think that she's the new Sydney and she's a victim. So they write her boring so that she's kind of, oh, I'm helpless victim Jill, I can't do anything for myself. So that you're so shocked when she's revealed, which is exactly what happened to me. I've heard some people say that they knew Jill was the killer. I least suspected her out of every Ghostface person I've ever seen. Not because she did that better than the other characters, more of the way she was written into where she was like, oh, she's the one Sydney's looking out for. She can't die. Sydney's got to protect her. No, she ends up being the person that Sydney's trying to protect her from, which is so brilliant. I think the writing of her character is the most brilliant Ghostface writing ever because of how they made the victim the killer. They really set her up to be like the new Sydney, and I feel like this was the best way for them to make Sydney the killer without ruining the entire franchise. And I've talked about this on my channel before because I love Jill so much. I think her character is just written so well. I think after she's unmasked, where her entire personality comes out, is just so well done. Obviously, she's got the part where she's like hurting herself, which is hilarious. I love everything about her reveal scene. And I love, because no other movie has done this, where they have the fake ending where it's at the house and she kind of gets away with it. She's the closest killer to ever get away with it. She makes it to the hospital, and that's where the real ending is. And I think that is so well done. By the time she's getting wheeled out of the house, you're like, where is the movie gonna go from here? I wish other movies had done that, because I think that made the ending of Scream 4 so unique. A lot of people don't like Scream 4. It's a little interesting, and I understand why people don't like Scream 4. I personally am a big fan of Scream 4. I think the characters in Scream 4 are by far better than the characters in Scream 3. Other than the fact that she's a little bit boring, I really don't have any critiques for her. I think she's a really well done Ghostface, and I think the boringness aspect of her character is what made her reveal so good. I also feel like personally I can relate to her, not in the murder sense. I feel like I can relate to her in the sense of like, she's a small girl. She really probably isn't able to do all this by herself. So she uses Charlie to do all the dirty work, killing all the victims, and then turns on him in the end because she knows she can take him out when he's not expecting it and make him do all the work so that she doesn't have to. That is so powerful. I feel like the way she does that, the way she tricks Charlie into doing everything and then just lets go of him in the end is so powerful and cruel. And I mean, that's what a good Ghostface is. I feel like I could talk for hours about why Jill is such a good character, but I know that Jill definitely has fans out there because I've seen them and I am one of them, so I'm glad that she has the fan base that she deserves because she's such a great character. And I think she's really well done by Emma Roberts. I think she did a really good job with Jill, and I think she's the best Ghostface, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, though. These Ghostface killers can be ranked in so many different ways, in so many different categories. I think if I were ranking on other aspects, Jill could be in a completely different spot and Roman could be up. I don't know. There's so many different ways you can look at it, which is why I think it's so much fun to see everyone kind of rank it, because I feel like everyone ranks it on different things. So please, if you have your own ranking of the Ghostface killers, let me know, because that's always a fun time. And yeah, I think that's it. Okay, bye.